So I recently had a lot of my buddies ask me, hey, Mike, after you built up your rental portfolio to over 130 units, why are you selling over half of them? And I decided I'll let you guys in on my mindset behind it and what's really going on. So if you guys know me by now, I treat real estate just like a company, a corporation, a business, because in all honesty, that's exactly what it is. So with that being said, in the beginning, I had these big dreams, these huge ambitious goals of having 100 doors in 10 years and owning half of a state, so forth and so on. Now, by having those large goals, I was able to accomplish that in a much shorter time frame than the full 10 years. So that was a good thing. Also, in the beginning, just like any other company, this was the acquisition phase, right? Just like a company would go out and try to get as many new users or clients as possible to try to go ahead and bring an income. For me, I had income coming in and I really wanted to acquire as many rental properties as I can. Now, at the time, the concept in my mind was, hey, use these rental properties to replace my income. And then that way I could get out of the military and do real estate full time. So I was running the numbers and I understand how to calculate cash flow. So I went ahead and calculated that number. And in my mind, all I needed was 100 doors and I would have more than enough money to go ahead and quit my job and live like a king. The reality of it is the more properties that you own, well, then there's going to be more opportunities to have capital expenses, right? Roofs going out, HVACs going out, tenants completely destroying the property, acts of gods like hurricane or fires taking over. So all of that supposed cash flow that you've been collecting over the years, it's not really yours to take and keep because it needs to support the company. It needs to support the properties. Now, lucky for me, I was able to figure that out early enough in my career. So I looked at it as in the beginning, we're going to have an acquisition phase, right? Gathering as many properties as we can or as many clients as we can. And then we're going to move to a stabilization phase. And that's saying, hey, how can I get the best out of what I already have? And that's where I'm at today. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting the maximum efficiency out of the properties that I currently own. So I'm doing that in a few different ways. Now, you may have heard of return on investment versus return of investment. So return on investment is essentially how much money are you making relative to the amount that you put in. Most common way to measure this is the cash on cash return. So say, for example, you invest $10,000 in order to purchase a property. Now, at the end of the day, at the end of every single month, you're getting $200 in cash flow after all of your expenses. So at the end of the year, you have $2,400 in cash flow. But to get the cash on cash return, we're going to take that $2,400 and we're going to divide it by that $10,000, which gives us a 24% return on our original investment. Now, the return of investment is essentially after you've gotten back all of your initial money, 100% of so-called cash on cash return, right? You got all your money back. Now, this is everything that you made on top of that. So in order to get all of those numbers shaken out, I'm checking out IRR, NPV, using the time value of money concept, return on equity, and many other calculations to really determine, hey, is this actually performing the best that it can? Or is there a better use if I went ahead and sold it and used that equity somewhere else? So after evaluating my entire portfolio, I'm choosing to sell off between 84 and 94 units, which is almost 3/4 of everything that I own. So now that you understand the why behind it, I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like and what I plan to do with the cash. But before we do that, if you're enjoying the content so far and you want to continue to support Mike, then go ahead and hit the like. Let's get to it. All right. So after really looking into some of these properties, I found that some of them just aren't making that much money at all. Matter of fact, I have some properties that are total and complete net loss. I'll give you an example of one just very briefly. I was lied to and I thought I purchased a property where I was going to put renovations in it and then simply do a refinance and pull out some capital. Well, the person who sold it to me completely lied about putting renovations in it and paid me out of somewhere when there was never a tenant that inhabited that property. And then once the pandemic hit, all of a sudden the eviction moratorium protected them from not collecting rents or not paying me any rents. And then when it all kind of went away, I decided to actually send somebody up there to check it out because now that the eviction moratorium was over, I'm like, why is it rented? And lo and behold, the property was in the same condition as it was before I bought it. No renovations were done, so they completely stole my renovation money, and no tenant ever lived in there. So all of the money that I've ever invested into that property is completely gone. So obviously you would want to sell that one too, right? Now that's a very unique situation, and luckily that's only on that set of property, but other ones just aren't performing as well as I wanted them to. So the properties that I am keeping are all the properties where I'm at the return of capital phase, meaning meaning I've already collected all of my initial investment back, and they're actually meeting a substantial cash flow or a debt service credit ratio enough to more than cover the mortgage amount, but also provide cash flow for the operations of the company. And I'm not looking for these rental properties to make me rich by any means. Well, at least not now anyway, because I look at rental properties as like a superpowered savings account. I'm gaining equity by somebody else paying down the principal of my mortgage amount, the market also appreciating, and then I'm getting to depreciate the value of the property, which is saving me in taxes, and I'm collecting cash flow in the process. So now, fast forward 20, 25 years, these properties will be free and clear. My net worth will be slightly higher, and the cash flow is going to increase when there's no mortgage payment there. Now, if you all are interested in learning more about that very specifically, then you can go ahead and check out this video here where it talks about how real estate pays you in 4 different ways. And there we go into a little bit more detail. And I'll be sure to put that in the description below as well. Okay, so all of that makes sense. Now, the question I usually get is, well, what do you plan to do with all of that extra cash? Well, I am glad you asked. So, well, I plan to do what any other business owner would want to do in my shoes. First thing I'm going to do is pay off any non-performing debt. So non-performing debt is essentially any debt out there that's not making me any money. For example, that really shitty property that I mentioned earlier, well, guess what? There's a mortgage on it, which opens up a whole different can of worms because it's like, how the hell did the lender actually put a loan on it when it was in horrible condition from the beginning? But nevertheless, that's neither here or there. That would be considered non-performing debt. The second thing I'm going to do is build up my reserves. A few years ago, if you had asked me, hey, what do you need for reserves when you start to scale your properties? And a general rule of thumb that I like to follow is you need a set amount of reserves per door that you have in your portfolio. Now, for me personally, I like to stick somewhere around the $5,000 mark, but let's be honest, the price of labor, the price of materials and everything else is skyrocketing. So that number is creeping up. I feel like $7,500 a door may be good, where others may say that $10,000 a door is probably what you should go for. Either way it goes, when you consider that amount, my personal opinion is that money stays in reserves. That's not money to be invested. That's not money to be drawn upon. That money is the rainy day fund to make sure that your portfolio is safe. So let's say we stuck with the $10,000 per door reserve amount. Well, with 130 properties, that means I need to have 1.3 million in cash sitting in the bank. And spoiler alert, I ain't got that much cash in the bank. Now, let's say I sell off 84 doors and I'm left with 46 doors in the portfolio. Well, following that same logic, if I only need $10,000 a door, that brings it down from 1.3 million to 460,000. Now, to be fair, that's still a lot of money, but objectively, you can see it's easier to achieve that than the 1.3 million in cash reserves. So in addition to building up those reserves and kind of building that safety net, the third use of the cash is so I can be cash heavy for the next investment opportunity. You know what they say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I'm a personal believer of always studying, always getting around people that can elevate your game in business and investing. And so part of my preparedness is me knowing that I have the knowledge, the experience, and the relationships to tackle any opportunity that's out there. However, I want to add to the preparation the cash, right? Having the ability to underwrite and find those connections or network with the right people and then bring several $100,000 to the table is now going to open up the opportunities. Now, this entire journey from acquisition to stabilization is going to happen to every real estate investor out there and, well, every entrepreneur, to be honest. So if you had the choice to either be prepared for it or to not, which one would you choose? Now, I'm willing to bet that you'd want to be prepared for it. So if you want to be prepared for more things that you're going to experience along the journey, then you want to go ahead and check out this video here about the things that I wish I knew before I ever started investing in real estate. Go ahead and click on it.